My name is Jeff Finkel. I'm the President and CEO of the International Economic Development Council. We are a membership association based in Washington, D.C., and I have been in this position 30 years. My job is several-fold. One, I am I guess the national spokesperson. In between the responsibilities of the chairs of our organization, I tend to be the person who is the front line of taking calls from national reporters, local reporters. I manage the day-to-day functions of the association. We have 30 staff. We have an office in downtown Washington, D.C., about a block and a half from the White House. And we have about a $6 million budget. And it is my job to make sure that all the pieces of the organization come together so that we deliver conferences, newsletters, our quarterly journal, training programs, technical assistance, and all of the other activities of the organization are done at hopefully a fairly high quality for our members. So we put out a newsletter that comes out 22 times a year. We put out a quarterly journal that comes out 4 times a year. We have kind of webinars, and anymore there are 2 to 3 a month of webinars, and they are both paid and unpaid, depending upon who we are delivering content for. We have our economic development research partners research projects. These are our cutting-edge research, and there are probably 3 to 5 of those reports issued each year. I would say that if you're a member of IEDC, you could probably look for something from IEDC 4 to 5 times a week, and you could spend a lot of time reading, participating in a variety of ways from us. I spent 5 years with the federal government, and I was a deputy. I ended my career with the federal government as a deputy assistant secretary at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I had 2 programs that reported to me. One was the Community Development Block Grant Program, and the other was the Urban Development Action Grant Program. The CDBG program actually still exists. The UDAG program was terminated a number of years ago. Both of those had a strong economic development component to it. UDAG having a much larger economic development component than the CDBG program. I frankly was sitting at my desk one day and a headhunter called. And the headhunter said, "You ought to submit your resume for this particular position." And so sometime in the winter of 1986, I did so. And I started August 1st, 1986. And so if I can make it to August, I will have been in this job 30 years. Well, you know, it's interesting. Economic development is a unique profession, and our members are trying to create, retain, expand jobs, develop tax base, and enhance wealth in the communities where they work. You know, I grew up in a poor, relatively poor, middle class, maybe middle class is a better term, industrial town in central Ohio. We were the lawnmower capital of the world in 1960. More lawnmowers were made in Newark, Ohio than any place else in the world. Today, not a single one. That's a similar story to Akron, Ohio. Akron in 1960 made more passenger tires than any other place in the world. Today, none. And so you look at your hometown and you watch this economic decline that occurs when these good-paying manufacturing jobs leave, and you wonder, what can you do? Well, I found a way, not necessarily how to help Newark, Ohio specifically, but I'd like to think we are helping communities like Newark all across the country in a variety of ways, through our legislative advocacy, through our education, so that people who are becoming economic developers can turn to the International Economic Development Council for assistance, and to share best practices of what our profession does to help communities and the people who live in those communities in keeping a job or finding one. Well, there are a whole variety of challenges, and the manufacturing challenge is twofold. One, it is losing many of those manufacturing jobs to places like China, where they are paying people much cheaper than we're able to pay them in the United States. There are some significant downsides for those manufacturers to go offshore. They lose control of their intellectual property. There's a contamination of the supply chain, and frankly, shipping those goods back to the United States oftentimes takes a long time, and the lead up to getting those products to market, it takes much longer than if you were here. The second, we've been losing a lot of manufacturing jobs to technology increases as well. So those are big issues for us in the economic development world. A second area of concern, or a second area that many of our members are working, is in the whole issue of real estate. And take, for instance, retail real estate. We've clearly have overbuilt retail real estate in the United States. I believe the statistic that I've heard is that there are over 100 million plus square foot malls that are shuttered in the United States. There are many former vibrant strip malls that are vacant. There are regional centers that are vacant. We actually have a term that we call those facilities. Brownfields is a contaminated real estate site. Gray fields is one that is just empty cement, which is what these are, and we call them gray fields. So, keeping your community vibrant, limiting these empty spaces is clearly another big issue. And, my hometown, Newark, Ohio, if you went around the town square, 4 or 5 years ago, there were many shuttered businesses. Fortunately, they've embarked upon a great reinvestment program. And actually, there are far fewer storefronts vacant. They're actually using the second floors of many of their buildings, and they've completely revamped the infrastructure in the downtown in ways that are making it significantly better than it was before. A third area that our members are spending a lot of time with, and we don't have quite as many answers as I think we would like, is the whole area of workforce readiness, or people that can go to work tomorrow for any number of companies. We have a lot of the baby boomers who are leaving the marketplace on a regular basis, and they're leaving the marketplace because they're retiring and they're taking their skills with them. Some of those skills are hard to replicate, and we're finding that there is a real need in the marketplace for some of the skills that the baby boomers once held, and that is an additional issue that many of our members are dealing with. Our members do finance, they do technology transfer, technology commercialization, downtown development, calling on companies to do business retention, calling on companies to be attracted to your community, marketing and attraction, working with newly minted entrepreneurs. These are all activities that our members work on. And so I could spend time on each of these various topics talking about how the economic development community works in those areas. What we're trying to do, first and foremost, is help our members do a better job of many of the things that I just talked about. We try to educate, we try to give people best practice, and we try to assist our federal government in thinking about policies that can help them do a better job of supporting local economic developers. Now, I say that as if all of our members are in the United States. They are not. We have nearly 300 members out of our nearly 5,000 that are in Canada, Mexico, and 16 other countries. And so for those members, we are literally trying to help them understand best practice or better practice. And if they learn these techniques that our members use, they should be better as economic developers in their own communities. Well, as a community as a whole, we do not tally, for instance, how many jobs our members or how many projects our members worked on every year. We don't tend to identify, how many jobs that they worked on that they could say they attracted X number of jobs. What I would say differently than that is that if there wasn't an economic development community, we'd have to go out and invent one. Because frankly, many of the companies that are making strategic decisions about their location or where they're going to grow need the support of somebody playing an economic development role so that they know they're making the right decision, so that they know that when they compare where the workforce that they need is versus where they are now or other options that they have, they can look at some numbers in black and white and say, yeah, they have the right number of welders in this community. Or if they're a call center, they have the types of intuitive people that can work at an inbound 800 call center. And so I think it would be fair to say that most communities couldn't live without their economic developer, but that's not a great metric. But if we went to look at very specific cities, I could find you great metrics in many places. I think our members are great at selling their communities. But I think they oftentimes have a difficult time selling their programs, selling themselves, selling their board, selling their importance to their community. And when we set out on this strategy for 2016, this is our 90th anniversary, and it's the year of the economic developer. If we were in China, it might be the year of the horse. I don't think it's the year of the horse. We decided to allow IEDC to create the year of the economic developer in a way that they could shine a light on themselves, on their own organizations, and the high quality work and the amount of work that they do to create, retain, and expand jobs in their communities. We have just put together a packet of information. We had dozens of city resolutions. We had 3 or 4 state resolutions. We had events throughout the country of people getting together to basically bring notice to their communities that as economic developers, they're there to help people get employed. I think of economic development as somewhat of a giving profession. There are a number of people who say they work in a giving profession. The way I've determined that this is fairly true, I have seen priests, as an example, work in 3 types of professions. One, as priests. Second, when I was out of college, I worked in the mental health and mental retardation field. And I found that there were priests who no longer were members of the clergy. They had walked away from the priesthood. And all of a sudden, they were working in mental health and mental retardation because they felt the inner strength of these people was that they were interested in helping people. And just because they walked away from the clergy for one reason or another didn't mean that what existed inside them didn't continue to exist. And now I see them in economic development. When I first came here in 1986, I had 2 former members of the clergy on my board, and the third was a seminarian who didn't complete his work and it was just fascinating to me that these people, and I think as I look across our membership and our leadership, these are people who are trying to do good. They're trying to help people in their community. They have a job, but they're more importantly trying to help others find jobs. They're trying to help entrepreneurs grow. They're trying to make sure that they don't have a hole in the downtown where a retail establishment either failed or moved. And they're constantly doing things to promote the communities where they work. Well, I would probably point out in 1986 when I went to a board meeting, it was probably largely white. It was probably largely male. My staff probably came close to being that way as well. The demographic shifts that are occurring in this country, and we as an organization have intentionally charged ourselves with being a diverse board. It's extraordinary in terms of that difference. Second, you know, the funny thing that I say is if you think about what technologies we had available to us in 1986 versus now. In 1986, I did not have a fax machine in my office or anywhere in our office. We had one computer. We had two large IBM DisplayWriter word processing systems. I don't know if anybody that has a DisplayWriter anymore. I'm sure somewhere you'll find somebody still using them. Today we have a computer at every workstation. We actually probably have another 40 or 50 laptops. We use them for our credit or a certification program when people take tests. The amount of room that our server closet takes in our office is somewhat amazing. Everywhere, everything that we are doing it smarter and better because of the extraordinary changes in technology. If that's true for us, that is also true for all of our members. And more importantly, it's representative of the businesses that they are dealing with. I used to have 2 registrars for our conference operation. I can get by with one, and I'm not even sure we keep her completely busy because most people register themselves. They go online, they type in everything, and our registrar just has to manage the transactions and in a way that you know, the money goes in appropriately, receipts go out appropriately. It's been an amazing change for all of us, largely around technology. I still believe that there are more people coming to economic development who have had a job in a slightly tangential way to coming to economic development. I helped teach one of our basic economic development courses in Reno, Nevada a number of years ago, and we went around the room and asked everybody what they did before they joined economic development. And I don't think there was one person that said they were straight out of college or they were straight out of an economic development or planning or public policy program that led them to an economic development career. I still think there's a lot of that is true. We are starting to see more specialized education programs at universities that would allow people to go to school and then become economic developers. I think we're in an interesting cycle. And a cycle implies that we're going to come back around. I'm not sure we will come back around. I see jobs of the future being harder to come by. We're here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've just had a conference while we're here in Tulsa, and we had the head of Macy's, which just opened up a 1 million square foot distribution center here. They have 1,000 employees. My guess is if we came back here in 3 or 4 years from now, it's going to be much less than that. And the reason that it's going to be much less than that will not mean that they've lost market share, but frankly, they've figured out how to do more of their work with fewer employees. That makes the economic developer role that much harder as they try to figure out schemes that help other companies grow or thrive to offer more economic opportunities for those folks who might have worked at Macy's or others that are either unemployed or their company downsized because of advances in technology. We will move along with every trend, hopefully, and trying to get our heads around those trends in a way that we can share better practice with our members so that they don't feel like they're dealing with those issues by themselves. You know, IEDC will follow most economic development issues as they appear. I mean, we have just spent all day Saturday, or a good portion of Saturday, with our board of directors discussing the strategic plan for this organization. And we laid out for them in a 160-page report a number of the trends in economic development and trends that impact the staffing, management, and competition that we deal with in the marketplace. And we look at our own history. If the organization remains strong, which I anticipate it will continue on that endeavor to update itself on a regular basis. When 2008 hit, and that was essentially the beginning of the recession, our strategic plan did not say, geez, help communities think about the recession and what affirmative steps that could they take to help their community get through the recession. We turned on a dime to make sure that we gave best practices to the extent we could to communities. And part of it was helping our member communities think about how do you communicate what you're doing. Deal flow, particularly from the site selection industry and companies thinking about expanding, came to a halt. Many economic development organizations turned hard right and just focused on business retention and helping some entrepreneurs think about their next steps as entrepreneurs. And this organization has had to respond carefully and quickly to a whole series of issues. Right now, who knew that coal would be a power source that would be on a fast decline? There are going to be coal communities all across this country that are suffering with unemployment because natural gas is in plentiful supply and does not pollute in the same way as coal does. It's not as dangerous as coal mining is. I would say that that's going to be a real problem for many places. And we're already out there working with those communities to think about what's your next economic opportunity in a post-coal environment. And, you know, we've helped communities after disasters. We've helped communities after military base closures, and we teach best practice in all of those things. Oh, in 30 years from now, we're going to be the largest membership association in Washington, D.C. We'll have a staff of 400, a huge budget, private jet. I don't know.